You can never tell a book by its cover was a phrase first used in the 1946 movie Murder in the Glass Room. It actually originated from a novel in 1860, The Mill on the Floss. It's something we are taught early in our youth, and I think it's pretty appropriate for the headphone I'll be talking about today. With that, I think it's time to undress or unveil the Hifiman Susvara Unveiled. What's cracking, everyone? My name is Ryan, and I'll be taking a bit of time today to discuss the Hifiman Susvara Unveiled. This is a Summit Fi headphone from Hifiman, and it retails in for $8,000. Along with the Unveiled, I will be doing a direct comparison to the OG Hifiman Susvara, which retails for $6,000 and can be found for less than that now that the Unveiled has hit the market. Now, the goal of this video today of the Unveiled is as follows: give you my analysis of the build, design, and comfort, cover the technical aspects of the driver, give my personal experience with different amp and DAC pairings, of course, cover the sound in detail along with track examples. While doing all of this, I will be including the OG Susvara into the mix. Before I jump in and disrobe the headphone, I do have a few thanks to give. First, to Audio 46, who provided me with the Susvara Unveiled and trusted me enough to handle this delicate headphone. Next, I would like to thank Kitsune Hi-Fi, who has allowed me ample time with their amp and DAC, the Holo May and Bliss stack, for an excellent pairing to the Susvaras. Also to Suin of Enlium for loaning me his personal 23R unit and the 23RMH from the Tungsten collab, again to pair with the Susvaras. And lastly, to a stand-up guy and fellow enthusiast who trusted me with his personal OG Susvara in order to get my comparisons of both these headphones. To all of you, thank you 8,000 times. All right, I'm gonna jump in feet first and get the ugly out of the way. That is to say, I do not like the look of the Unveiled. When I first saw it unveiled online, I thought, why? The silver's fine, but the poopy brown color of the pads and strap are not exactly my cup of tea. Still, looks are subjective. Again, don't judge a book, yada, yada, yada. Then I saw how the veil coverings remove in order to truly open this headphone up, and again, I question why. Well, sound is why, by the way. Still, I've been baffled by doing this with such an expensive piece of gear. So with that out of the way, the headphone is made up mostly of metal around the skeleton and band up top. It is CNC machined with a very smooth finish with no sharp edges that I've found. Now, the strap up top will be very stiff when you first get it in. However, I'm sure this will break in over time and become a more comfortable fit like we see here on the OG Susvara. Now, the adjustment is pretty much the same with both headphones and doesn't seem to suffer from any scratch or scuffing like other Hifiman headphones can, such as the Aria Organic. Now, the materials between both Susvaras feels the same and the metal looks the same. One difference here is the Unveiled has no veneer wood trim on the cups like the Susvara originally had. Now, personally, I like the look much better on the original, even if it is a bit cheaper on the materials compared to other Summit Fi level headphones from companies such as Meze, Focal, and even Odyssey, just to name a few. Now, the cups on the original Susvara also have full swivel and tilt, whereas the Unveiled does not. Now, I gotta think this is due to the veils being removed so you don't leave it flat on a table with the driver completely exposed and the risk of being damaged. Now, be that as it may, I always prefer more swivel and tilt for comfort and convenience. But convenience is not what this headphone is about, is it? Now, the pads also feel and look the same other than the color. It's a very soft hybrid perforated leather pad. They are also removable, though I didn't attempt to do that on this headphone being so expensive and not mine. Now, the obvious difference between the two headphones, build and design wise, is on the grille and the veils. Now, traditionally, headphones will have a window shade or mesh type of grille for open back headphones. The original Susvara is a window shade grille and honestly looks exquisite when it reflects in the light of that golden underneath of the driver. Now, for the Unveiled, Hifiman said, remove the grille and let's just completely open this SOB up. I mean, I get it. There was a lot more thought behind it other than that, but still, I can't help but picture that conversation happening back at the lab. Now, I quote Hifiman on this: "The design of the window shade cannot completely avoid reflection and refraction. Only by eliminating the window shade grille design will near lossless sound quality be achieved." All right, fair enough. Now onto the warning behind this. Due to the magnetic properties of the driver, it is important to cover the ear cups with the magnetic veils to avoid damage caused by absorption of magnetic objects when the product is not in use. Yeah. Now, I know the veils weren't meant to be some extreme, elegant design, so I cannot help but think of these as simple hubcaps like on a car, or when removed, you could even use them as a coaster for the alcohol you'll consume when you need to calm your nerves of a fully exposed $8,000 driver to the elements. Cheers to that. Okay, I've said my piece and it's time to move on. Now, along with the headphone, you will get a leather box with a latch to carry them in. In the box, you also get two sets of cables. One is a 6.3 unbalanced and the other is a 4-pin XLR balance cable, which terminates to dual 3.5 connections to the cups. Both are 3 meters in length and both are honestly nothing special. The wire is said to be a single crystalline copper alongside a single crystalline silver wire, inside a simple black sleeve. Hifiman, I think you could do better on the accessory package considering the cost and risk of this product. And that's just my 2 cents. Now, they do also include a beautifully illustrated book all about the technology, build, and design of the headphone. Now, I do appreciate this, sincerely. It even makes for a nice backdrop to put up on the shelf next to the headphone to add to that luxury of owning it. So my first few hours spent with the Unveiled gave me some discomfort. Now, I'm happy to report that over time, that discomfort vanished, like the veils. I find both headphones to be equally comfortable. Now, the original felt more comfortable at first, but it's also been broken in for a much longer period of time, which definitely matters. Now, both headphones sealed nicely on my head, so no issues there at all. Lastly, weight-wise, the original Susvara weighed 450 grams, the Unveiled weighs 430 grams with the veils off. I mean, makes sense. So the Susvara Unveiled has a nanometer thickness diaphragm, which is one reason they opened up the headphone driver to the world. It is more sensitive to reflections and refractions, which is what I mentioned earlier. It's extremely light and gives the headphone ultra fast response, speed, and dynamic range. Now, I'm quoting that, but also agreeing based on experience listening to this headphone. The diaphragm conductor layer uses a metallic silver coating, whereas the original Susvara used gold. Now, silver is second only to superconducting material, according to Hifiman, so it boasts the highest conductivity of all metals. So keep pens, metal rimmed glasses, and any sharp metal objects far, far away from this headphone. And yes, in case you are wondering, there have already been reports of damaged Susvara Unveiled drivers. Now, this driver also uses the stealth magnet technology that Hifiman incorporates in order to allow sound to pass through the magnets without quality degradation of the traditional magnets. So I think we can kind of see a theme here. Pass through, open, unveiled. Now, the other big difference comes in with impedance and sensitivity between the two headphones. The original Susvara is known to be a very difficult to drive headphone with 60 ohms of impedance and a sensitivity of 83 dB. The Susvara Unveiled comes in at 45 ohms of impedance and a sensitivity of 86 dB. Still difficult to drive, but much easier than its predecessor. All right, I think it's important to give you a quick demo of taking the veils off of the headphone. So they are on by magnets and they're not held super tight, but you just have this little lip that you pull and it pops the veil right off. You do that on both sides and you are very, very exposed here to the elements. You could listen to this headphone with the veils on, but it's just gonna deaden the sound, so it's not gonna make it a closed back headphone. Something to note on that. Now for the duration of the rest of this video, I'll go ahead and leave the veils off so you can gaze at those drivers. Now when I knew I was going to get the chance to review the Susvara Unveiled, I quickly realized I would need something a bit more higher end than what I currently have when it comes to my DAC and my amp. Now my personal DAC is the Holo Cyan 2, which by the way, is no slouch of a DAC. My amps are the Cayin HA-8 and the Cayin HA-3A tube amp. Both have plenty of power to drive either of these headphones, by the way. I even have a Modius Midgard Schiit stack for a gaming setup, and that honestly drove both headphones for volume. Now just driving them isn't quite enough though, so I was happy to be able to listen to these on the Holo May and Bliss stack, as well as on the Enlium 23R and 23RMH. Now the H is the high power edition. My personal opinion is that this gets you pretty dang close to a fully driven Susvara OG and Unveiled, which is crucial when dissecting the sound of these headphones. Now before I jump in, I will tell you that I find the Unveiled to synergize better with the amps that I used, whereas the original Susvara was much more picky and definitely required more scale in terms of the quality of amps and DACs used, such as the Holo stack versus a simple Schiit stack or even the Cayin amps that I mentioned. Now as for the sound of the Unveiled, this is what I find from a standard frequency response scenario. It's well balanced first of all, but then any headphone in this price range really should be. It has full extension into the lows, though not as prominent as the original Susvara. Mid frequencies are very full, lush, and even a touch on the forward side, I would say. The original Susvara here feels more neutral and less aggressive. Then as we head into the high end, I find the Unveiled to be a warmer presentation over the OG. Now the OG Susvara can get some bite to the highs at times I found, but I didn't find it as much at all with the Unveiled. Now I find both headphones to be very wide, spacious, and holographic. However, I do feel the openness of the Unveiled and the unique characteristics that it showcases. All right, I think I wrote down over 30 different track examples and differences heard between both headphones. Doing so really helped me to determine common themes I was finding, and so with that, let's just focus on maybe a handful of those. First off, I'd like to discuss the track Hurt by Johnny Cash. Now, Johnny Cash was at his final years of his life when he recorded this rendition. On the Susvara Unveiled, you really feel the crack and age in his voice. It's still classic Cash, but a dissection of his vocals. Also, the dynamic range is excellent when he really gets going with moments of aggression with the guitar. The buildup is spectacular. On the original Susvara, I just don't feel his voice quite as prominent. The age of it doesn't showcase quite as clearly. Now, this would be a preference thing as to which you prefer, but was definitely a difference that I heard. Now, my next track was The Prophet by Gary Moore. This is such a fantastic solo electric guitar blues track. Gary is surgical with his instrument here, and so are the Susvaras. The original Susvara does hit points where it gets on the edge of being a bit too much, especially during those really highest of highs on the guitar. The Unveiled was more tolerable for me here. Now, both were incredibly enjoyable and was one of those tracks that I found no clear winner, except I do feel a tiny bit more grip on the guitar with the original Susvara. Now, emotions ran high for me on this track, I won't lie. It was pretty amazing. Speaking of which, another emotional track was Rise by Dominique Fils-Aimé. Now, her vocals are breathtaking in my opinion. It also helps that I feel this album is recorded incredibly well. The biggest difference between both headphones here comes down to the openness of sound. The Unveiled just has this unleashed reverberation of her voice. It feels huge, but not unnaturally. There's also this woodblock instrument that is off to the right on this track. Now on the original Susvara, I feel this hit more precisely and direct, and perhaps a bit hollow on the Unveiled. Again, this will be a preference thing, but a difference I heard. Also, the lows thump with more authority on the original Susvara. Now, as we talk about dynamics and the attack of the two Susvaras, I feel like the track If Darkness Had a Sun by Metallica is a great one to showcase both speed and attack. The drums from the start of this track should pop with authority. Then speed will pick up, and as we move through this mix and the rhythm and pacing, it should get your head nodding and perhaps a little bit of headbanging. Though headbanging with the Unveiled would be highly ill-advised. I feel like that should be a warning label. Still, the Unveiled does a decent job of this. Speed is absolutely no problem, and the attack is good. I'd say it's probably a 3 out of 5 for my taste, where I would place a ZMF or Focal as a 5, just for reference. Now, the OG Susvara surprised me here. There is snap to this more so than punch. The snares pop with a fidget toy type of satisfaction, pushing those little bubble poppers. Yeah, I have kids. I'd give the attack more than a 3 here for sure, closer to a 4, and again, it invoked a feeling I needed when I was listening to that type of music. I'll admit that classical music is not one of my favorite genres, but I feel like Hifiman is a classical genre-focused headphone company, and maybe that's a bit judgmental for me to say. But with that, I made sure to sample some music I do enjoy, such as movie scores and even video game scores. The Elden Ring soundtrack, for example, comes to mind. There is a track called Ancient Dragon Lansu, which is, of course, a dragon fight from the game. Both Susvaras show off their technical chops for just how holographic in nature this is. Back row instruments and full stage shine through. Again though, I cannot deny just how big and full of a sound I get out of the Unveiled. It truly is unique to the headphone. I can imagine going through this fight and just getting the sense of just how epic it is to be in such a fight with this beast and get slaughtered repeatedly. Still, I would say if you require just a bit more definition and exactness of instruments, you may prefer the original Susvara. And I'll end these track examples with 2 more vocal-focused songs from artists that I enjoy: Sarah Bareilles and Leprous. Both have many tracks that sample vocals with authority. Yellow Brick Road by Sarah and Distant Bells by Leprous were written down here as examples. Excellent dynamic range and big moments can be found on each of these tracks. The emotions evoked were undeniable, and I did feel them more with the Unveiled. Now, that is not to say it wasn't nearly there with the OG Susvara as well. If you love vocals, the Unveiled may be more emotional grabbing just based on the touch of forwardness given. This could also be a detriment if this is a sound you do not care for and you require more of a surgical, detailed sound that warmth can curve off a bit. I'd like to come to the conclusions of both headphones as a typical what's your preferences question. If you already own the original Susvara and love the sound of it, you may not care for this upgrade. Just because it's a cost upgrade doesn't always mean it's a true upgrade. Personally, I would prefer more low end. I also do not care for wearing something on my head that I feel so delicate and exposed with. I want my listening to be relaxing and comforting. Once I got used to the exposed drivers, I did cozy up to the Unveiled more. I am someone who likes a more forward presentation. I also like the warmth and big sound the Unveiled showcases. Is it enough to warrant a trade-off of safety and that feeling you get when holding the original Susvara? Again, it's pretty subjective, but the original just has that look and feel of premium, mostly. Whereas the Unveiled is just strange. I also cannot stress enough the importance of what you pair these headphones up with. The original Susvara is going to be pickier. However, it will also reward you much more when paired up with better sources. Even going from the IHA-3A, which drove both of these headphones very well, I noticed a bigger jump when I listened on the Holo stack with the original Susvara. Now that could also be another selling point of the Unveiled, that I just felt like it played better with different amps, or at least the handful of amps that I sampled so take that for what it is. Now, at the end of the day, for my personal preferences, I would never own a headphone this exposed no matter what the sound reproduction was. I just don't care for that kind of an experience, but that's just me. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If so, please smash that like button. Hopefully I have done justice in giving you an example of what the Unveiled sounds like over the OG Susvara. I would love to know your thoughts in the comments down below. I would like to thank you all for watching this video, and I will see you in the next one.